There is a narrative out there in some quarters that argues that perhaps the reason that Trump is so shockingly soft on Russia and Vladimir Putin specifically is because of this idea that you mentioned that somehow the United States wants to work with Russia to contain China. I don't buy it for a second. I think it is an interpretation. You're right, that is out there, but I don't think it is an accurate interpretation on the part of those who put forward that argument. As you rightly pointed out, President Xi and President Putin have met very recently and issued a long and substantive joint statement making it clear that the Russia-China friendship and deep no limits partnership is here to stay for the foreseeable future and probably for the long haul. These are two powerful nations that have a lot of common interests, particularly when it comes to basically serving as a kind of check against U.S. Power, or as they would phrase it, U.S. hegemony or unilateralism. And the notion that the United States is somehow going to peel Russia off from that close relationship with China and turn Russia into a friend or even ally of sorts in containing China is preposterous, and that is simply not going to happen at this point because the commonality of interest between China and Russia across a variety of issues and just fundamentally ideologically is so substantial. And the differences between Russia and the United States and China and the United States are also so substantial that I don't see any realistic scenario in the foreseeable future. The dynamics of this triangular relationship change in any major way. I think we're going to see Russia and China continue to deepen their already very strong relationship for years to come. And I think we're going to see the United States have serious challenges with China over the long term for reasons that we can discuss, but basically some pretty fundamental differences in our worldview and national interests, et cetera. And meanwhile, I think our relationship with Russia is going to continue to be greatly complicated, as it should be, by the fact that Russia has aggressively assaulted Ukraine and continues that assault to this day. Now, let me say, as someone who has worked in both China and Russia, speaks both languages, and has worked professionally on U.S.-China and U.S.-Russia relations for most of my entire career, I would love to see the United States and Russia resolve our differences. I would love to see Russia cease and desist from its unprovoked, unjustified, and unlawful assault on Ukraine. And if those things can be achieved, then with that as a foundation, then I would love to see the United States and Russia reestablish a constructive and even friendly relationship. But I cannot see how that can happen in a way that the United States could possibly be comfortable with Russia in this act of war. At a broad level, I would love to see peace. I would love to see all three of these powerful countries get along well with each other. But the impediments to that right now are very substantial, and I don't see them going away anytime soon. And the only way that that would change would be if President Trump and his administration absolutely categorically capitulates and surrenders to Russia and sells out Ukraine, which is seemingly what this administration has tried to do in the last several months. But barring that, the impediments to a true rapprochement between the United States and Russia are significant, and there's no way in the world that the United States and Russia are ever going to gang up on China anytime in the foreseeable future. That is ludicrous, and that's not going to happen. There are a couple of points I would make about the so-called minerals deal. Look, the United States is leading the charge internationally in helping Ukraine, and so the United States has a major role in this, and Ukraine is very beholden to the United States. It is not a relationship of equality. The United States is holding all the cards, to use that metaphor. The United States is the principal backer of Ukraine, along with Europe. Ukraine's future depends to a very large degree on whether the United States does or does not continue to support Ukraine in this war. So against that backdrop, the United States and Ukraine are negotiating or have been negotiating and apparently have successfully concluded the negotiation around a so-called minerals deal. And Ukraine, I think, really didn't have any realistic choice but to acquiesce to this deal irrespective of whether the president of Ukraine, Mr. Zelensky, or others thought that this was truly in Ukraine's interest. And I would argue that this deal was signed and negotiated and signed under great duress because the implicit and actually, I would say, explicit threat from the U.S. administration was if you don't do what we want you to do, we're going to pull out and you're going to lose even more territory than the one-fifth that you've already lost, the one-fifth of your country that you've already lost to Russia. So I thought that the United States pressure on Ukraine around the so-called minerals deal was unseemly. But this administration has framed the approach in just that way. It's like me taking you out to lunch and then 3 months later saying, you owe me for that lunch. It's unseemly. I think it is damaging to the stature and image of the United States. And I have some pretty serious concerns about it. But that being said, the deal is apparently done, and hopefully it will be mutually beneficial for both countries. But it goes to and reflects the incredible transactionality that we see from this president and from this administration. It makes me uncomfortable as an American because I think it is very damaging to our image.